Hello again, Steve here with a little bit of a commentary on an article that a friend of mine sent me a couple of days ago. And this guy is not a Trump. He doesn't like Trump at all. He's a Democrat supporter. So you know where this is going already. But anyways, he thinks that I'm a Trump supporter, which is kind of funny because I've told him many times, I've explained to him many times. But I don't know. Sometimes trying to explain things to Democrat supporters is well, a little bit frustrating. But anyways, every once in a while he sends me something to try to convert me from my delusion, right? I'm so deluded I actually believe in freedom, so it's hilarious. But anyways, he sends me this thing, and it's actually funny. I thought at first, in fact, I sent it back. I said I thought at first this was some kind of a meme of Trump derangement syndrome, which I'm sure he doesn't know what Trump derangement syndrome is, because when you're in the bubble, right, you don't hear about that. Nobody talks about Trump derangement syndrome on CNN probably. And he admits to getting most of his information from CNN. That's the hilarious part about it. Anyway, we shall proceed here. This is a something sent to him, I guess, by a friend of his or whatever. So it's a forwarded email, and it starts out by the friend of his saying, "The best, most cogent and simple," in brackets, in the sense of its elegant simplicity, close bracket, explanation of the massively destructive negotiation process of the president by Professor David Honing of Indiana University. That's the first thing I just saw there. That's why when I first saw that, that's why I sent him back. I wasn't sure if this was a meme of Trump derangement syndrome, because here's a professor, right? And I was just wondering how much negotiation has a professor ever done? And he works for a state university. I looked it up. Indiana University is a state university. And he goes on to say that he's an adjunct professor. An adjunct professor, I looked that up, what that was, and it's a part-time professor who usually joins the union so he can't be fired. Oh, it's hilarious. Like, I'm surprised how these things miss. Like, this guy who sent me this is a smart guy. In many ways, a successful businessman. But how these little inconsistencies are just pass them by. It's like, rather than making an argument, he just sends me over this pap, right? It's amazing. And then it says, the person who's forwarding this, "Everybody I know should read this accurately, this accurate and enlightening piece." Okay. Now in quotes, this is the good professor speaking. "I'm going to get a little wonky and write about Donald Trump and negotiation." Now that was kind of funny because to him, getting wonky is just mentioning Donald Trump. It's like, I'm going to talk about somebody stupid for a while. That's what the professor is basically saying, my understanding of it, right? But another way you could look at it is, for somebody who's familiar with Donald Trump's capabilities, for a professor to talk about Donald Trump and to try to correct everybody on Donald Trump's negotiating abilities, when probably he's never negotiated hardly anything in his life, is completely wonky. But he doesn't see it that way. See, he knows stuff because he's so studied, right? Anyways, so he's going to get a little wonky. "For those of you who don't know, I am an adjunct professor at Indiana University, Robert H. McKinney School of Law, and I teach negotiations." Okay, here goes. He teaches negotiations, right? Meanwhile, Donald Trump has spent his entire life negotiating. Worldwide. On billions of dollars. Thousands of employees and everything. But he teaches negotiation, so he's gonna set everybody straight on how bad Donald Trump is. Donald Trump, as most of us know, is the accredited author of The Art of the Deal, a book that was actually ghostwritten by a man named Tony Schwartz. Okay, fair enough. Well, I don't think Donald Trump built his high-rises. Didn't build Trump Tower. I didn't see Donald Trump down there with a chisel and hammer building Trump Tower. But it's still Trump Tower. It's his. He's the one who authored it. An author, by the way, Mr. Professor, is not the one who writes the book. It's the one who authors the book. The author is the authority, right? If you hire somebody to write a book about you, they sit down and they take the information and you tell them what you want to write and you make sure it's written that way and so on. You own the book. You're the author. That's what an author is. An author isn't a writer necessarily. An author is who's the authority behind it. That's where the word comes from. Anyway, so Donald Trump's the author, who was given access to Donald Trump based on his observation. If you read Art of the Deal, or if you follow Donald Trump later, you will know, even if you don't know the label, that he sees all deal making as what we call distributive bargaining. Now, that's that was something I was going to say about it. So he goes on to explain what distributive bargaining always has a winner and a loser. Okay, in many cases that's what there has to be, at least for one side, right? You're negotiating on this piece of real estate, right? There's no two pieces of real estate, there's just this piece of real estate. One person's going to end up with it. But it's not win-lose, as he talks about, because the other guy it's still a voluntary trade. It's not government. It's not like Mr. Professor. Mr. Professor is working in a state coercive system where the people who paid the taxes don't have a choice. They don't have a choice to negotiate how much taxes they're going to pay to support Mr. Professor. Donald Trump, on the other hand, when he negotiates, doesn't matter what kind of negotiation it is, it's still a voluntary interaction with somebody. And yes, there is a win-lose, absolutely, Professor, for the actual property. But on the other side, there's the compensation. So there is the compensation for it, so it's not actually win-lose. You're wrong. Sorry, buddy. It's not win-lose. It's win-lose in your business, called government job, where you actually are the recipient of stolen money. So anyways, that's how I see it here. No, it's not how I see it. It's what it is. Okay, winner and loser. It happens that there is a fixed quantity of something. Of course there is. I mean, there's only so much land, right? Of course there's only a fixed quantity. And two sides are fighting over it. Fighting over it, yeah. Not negotiating in this case, so he switched it from negotiating to fighting. How it gets distributed. It's just like they're fighting over a penny or something, right? Think of it as a pie you're fighting over. And who gets how many pieces? In Trump's world, no, it's not like a pie you're fighting over. No, it's not. It's a negotiated deal where one person is going to give something as a trade. You're not fighting over a piece of pie. Two people fighting over a piece of pie, one guy's going to get it, the other guy is not going to get it. But he's not going to get compensated for not getting it. In this case, if you're bargaining over something, there's a trade. It's like, you have the pie and I have some money. So we're deciding whether you're going to keep the pie or I'm going to get it. But if I'm going to get it, I'm going to have to give you something. That's not the example of the pie at all. You're completely wrong on the pie. In Trump's world, the bargaining was for a building or a construction work or subcontractors. He perceives a successful bargain as one which there is a winner and a loser. So he pays less than the seller wants. He wins. No, he doesn't pay less than the seller wants. No, he doesn't, because if it's less than the seller wants, they're not going to sell it. So this is the living in professor world. This is the the evil capitalist versus the worker. This is Marxism 101. It's just nonsense. The more he saves, the more he wins. Well, in that case, of course, sure. That's the same with you, Mr. Professor, when you go down to Walmart to buy something, we sell for less. That's what Walmart says. So you pay less for your groceries and you win. But Walmart doesn't lose because Walmart got you in there as a customer. The other type of bargaining is called integrative bargaining. In integrative bargaining, the two sides don't have to compete, don't have a complete conflict of interest. Sorry, I'm having a hard time reading this. With such fine print. And it is possible to reach mutually beneficial agreements. Oh, so what he's saying is that Trump doesn't reach mutually agreements. He actually steals from people. When he negotiates and he actually makes a deal, he buys something, he gives the guy the money, the guy actually goes away feeling completely cheated. In other words, the guy who he's negotiating with is a complete idiot and is willing to sell himself down the road. That doesn't make any sense at all. At all. There is no defined end to the negotiation. There is no simple winner or loser in this integrative thing, this communist thing or whatever. How could there be no end in game? So Trump should be doing that. He should go in and when he's going to buy a piece of real estate, according to the professor, he should have no goal in mind. Oh, maybe I'll get it, maybe I won't, maybe it'll be half the land, maybe it'll be this, maybe it'll be that. You know, how does that make any sense? It doesn't make any sense at all. There are always more pies to be baked. Oh, I see. If we don't have enough real estate, we can just make some more real estate. Yeah. Further negotiations are binary. Yeah, you just make stuff up. It's everything's subjective, you know. China, uh, China's choices are buy soybeans from the U.S. or don't buy soybeans. They can also be buy soybeans from Russia or Argentina or Brazil or Canada. That completely strips distributive bargaining and his power to win or lose, to control the negotiations. Well, except that America is not Russia. There's many things that people need to get from America they can't get anywhere else. That's why everybody wants to go to America, because it's the best country in the world, right? So sure, they can buy from. That's playing chess, right? And playing chess, you make a decision, sometimes to sacrifice something that is a greater gain. Yes, in some cases there's going to be losses. That's negotiation. It's negotiations 101. Call it whatever you want. One of the risks of distributed bargaining is bad will. Oh, okay. Well, but you would expect that, Mr. Professor, from Trump, because he's Trump, right? So everything that Trump does is bad will anyway. So why even bother talking about that? In a one-time distributed bargaining, e.g., negotiating for a cabinet maker in your casino about whether, that's the other thing, is these guys who've never been in business, they think that everything's just one-off. Oh, you got such a great deal, right? He thinks, oh, he's going to buy some cabinets and he's never going to buy again. Well, it's nonsense. Negotiated for cabinets in one of your casinos about whether you're going to pay his whole bill or demand a discount. Demand. That's the other thing he mentions a lot here is demanding. Trump's always demanding stuff like that. That's not how negotiations work, Mr. Professor. You don't demand stuff. That's what you do. And he's a law professor too, so he teaches law, right? Lawyers and police and government agents and judges, they demand, right? Because they have guns behind them, right? And you have guns behind you. That's who pays you, right? You're paid by the force of the gun. You know, you're paid tax money, which is extorted out of people. So you make demands, but negotiators can't make demands, and certainly Trump can't make demands. So, anyways, one of the risks. Okay, if you do that to a cabinet maker, you bet he won't agree to the cabinets in your casino. Well, first of all, you're not demanding of him. And if the cabinet maker doesn't want to make cabinets, he doesn't want to make cabinets. The deal's got to work for him. It's got to be win-win. It's got to be win for him too. Otherwise, he won't make a deal. There isn't another Canada. Well, there is another Canada actually, because you can trade with other people. So you might say that, oh, China can go and get something from Russia. Well, so can the U.S. Right? The U.S. could buy from India, the U.S. can buy from Canada, from Brazil. There's an open market of different places that can be dealt with, so it goes both ways. So when you approach international negotiations in a world as complex as ours, with integrated economies and multiple buyers and sellers, you must simply approach them through integrative bargaining. If you attempt distributive bargaining, success is impossible. And we see that already. So what Trump is doing is absolutely impossible. So he can't, he's what is he, 70-something years old. He's done trades all over the world for decades and decades. He's made deals with NATO for the other members to kick in the money that they're supposed to kick in. He's gotten to the point where Kim Jong-un has released prisoners of war, which were there for years and years. He's got China to agree to sign on to certain deals to do with North Korea, and ongoing different deals. But probably he's been more of a worldwide negotiator than perhaps anybody in history, and yet everything he's doing is completely impossible. I'm just amazed at how sometimes these people will say things and they actually believe their own stuff because they're so So ideological, I think, is what it is. Anyways, I'm probably going to run out of room on my iPhone here, so I probably won't go through all of this. I'll just sort of pick here and there. He talks about Trump has raised tariffs on China. China responded, in addition to raising tariffs on U.S. goods by dropping all its soybean orders. Okay, then it went over to Russia. Well, but that's what negotiation is, right? Negotiation is back and forth. Trump has the same weakness politically. For every winner, there must be a loser. And that's just not how politics works. Actually, that is how politics works. That's exactly how politics works, winners and losers, because politics is, so there's no such thing as that. Okay, so then if one party wins an election, what you should do is say, okay, let's ignore what the people said. And well, the last election, for example, this guy is proposing that you should just ignore what the people had voted for and just allow all the parties to rule, because there's no such thing as winners and losers in politics. But seems to be the opposite way around as far as I can see. People who study negotiations, for people who study negotiations, this is very basic stuff. This is negotiation 101. Mr. Professor, yes, it might be very basic for you because all you do is study it. But for those who actually do it for decades and decades and decades and decades and create a multi-billion-dollar company in the process, multiple ones, maybe what they're doing actually works. Jesus Christ, I can't understand these people. Definitions you learn before even starting to talk about style and tactics. There's another huge problem for us. Okay, Trump is utterly convinced that his experience in his closely held real estate company has prepared him to run a nation. And therefore, he rejects the advice of people who spent their entire careers studying the nuances. Yeah, studying. Their entire careers studying, right? Versus actually doing it. Nuances of international negotiations and diplomacy. I wonder how much this guy said about Barack Obama, who was, a community activist for many, many years, and basically most of his friends were communists. What he knew about negotiations. I bet you there's scant amount written about that. Yeah. But the leaders on the other side of the table are not, have not eschewed expertise rather. They have embraced it. And it's amazing too. A friend of mine, another person I know, is very intelligent in so many ways too. He's of the mind that Kim Jong-un is the great strategist working with Donald Trump. Like, he's brilliant because he lived in Switzerland and he's so worldly and all that sort of stuff. And he knows he's just playing Trump like a fiddle, right? Jesus Christ, it's amazing to me. And that means they look at Trump and give a very, they look at Trump and given his very limited tool chest and his blindly distributive understanding of negotiations, they know exactly what he is going to do and exactly how to respond to it. So this must be why the mainstream media is so outraged every time Donald Trump did something different. It's like they had no idea what was coming their way. But these guys like Kim Jong-un, they know exactly how to deal with this Donald, don't they? From a professional negotiations point of view, professional, not a practical, not somebody who's done lots, but a professional who studied. Trump isn't even bringing checkers to the chess match. I know he didn't bring many checkers to checkers anyways. I wish he had talked about Tommy Robinson, but that's another thing to his speech at checkers, that is. He brings a quarter that he insists of flipping for heads and tails. I would say it should have said insists on flipping for heads or tails. But while everybody else is studying the chessboard and deciding whether better to open with Najdorf or Grundfeld. I think those were very famous chess players. Um, Mind you, Mr. Professor, they might just be playing 2D chess or 3D chess, and I think that Trump might be playing another level of chess because he's got so much experience with negotiations. But anyways, I thought it was interesting, and when I got this, when I received this back, I went back and forth a few times just for fun with my friend here, and no arguments whatsoever. I mean, it was all just Trump's a bear, he's a bully. And I made the point, well, if he's a negotiator, he's not a bully. That's exactly the opposite. That'd be like saying, you make love with somebody who's your wife. Well, that's not rape, because the opposite, right? A bully doesn't negotiate. That's government. That's Obama and those sort of people who are government people. They know how to bully, lawyers, etc. But a negotiator, that's the opposite. That's a win-win. Negotiation by its very nature. A negotiated deal is a win-win deal. That's what it is. It doesn't matter what kind of negotiation. If there's two free voluntary parties negotiating, it is a win-win deal. Now, when you get into government, of course, it's not. I mean, so that's the problem. It's not whether it's Trump or it's somebody else. It's when you inject government into it and you're forced to do certain things. That takes out the free will out of it. Anyway, my comments on this. If you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share. We'll talk again soon. Bye for now.